Hey everybody, my name is Jared Malott. I'm here with my good friend Mateo. This is the Coltist season 3, episode 2. We're calling it the Vontae Davis episode. Obviously, rest in peace forever, brother. Vontae Davis passed recently. He played for the Colts, a couple time a Pro Bowler. If you remember, and again, not the way I'd want to be remembered either, but Vontae Davis is the guy that retired in the middle of a game.
Yeah, when he was playing for the
2018
Bills.
against when he was playing for the Bills, I remember it. Um, did not
I,
come
I
out in enough time.
remember, yeah, I remember him. I mean, I think perhaps newer Colt fans or perhaps younger ones, they
Yeah.
probably remember him as, I've been watching the Colts since like probably 2012, 2011.
Mhm.
He was the only perhaps, true shutdown cornerback we had to watch. And the thing I remember about him the most is the hit. I mean, he had a hit on I believe it was Giovanni Bernard of the Bengals, which was perhaps one of the meanest hits I've ever seen from a Colts player. He was just physical, a great, great cornerback. His lockdown season was just amazing. Was perhaps the best season I've seen from a Colts cornerback. And yeah, it was really sad watching him, when you watch players that you really liked and they were, good players and great people, good all around guys, and you get, the notification on your phone like Vontae Davis passes away at 35.
Yeah.
You're like, well, damn, just sucks for him. He was a great Colt, and he we're dedicating this episode, to him.
Absolutely. Vontae Davis played for the Colts in a time of transition, right? So between the losing Peyton and getting Andrew Luck time frame, right?
Yeah,
So obviously him being here kind of as a defensive stalwart in that kind of period, kind of holding it together for the back end, right? Um, obviously, it's in to me it just says check on your people, right? Um, and I think that's a good place to leave it. Remember, this
yeah.
is a Colts and Pacers podcast. I'd affront with if Caitlin Clark is the first pick in the WNBA draft and goes to the Indiana Fever, we
Yeah, that
might as
would
well
be
just
amazing.
we might as well just start talking about the Fever too, because
About the fever too, yeah.
that's gonna be a hot ticket. I was telling my wife I haven't thought ever in my life about season tickets, but I might just do that if it's Caitlin Clark and they're reasonable, because they're gonna be reasonable
Yeah, they're not gonna
when
be
you
yeah, they're not gonna be too expensive. So yeah, we might start. I mean, if we get Caitlin Clark, I am not opposed to start talking perhaps, bi-weekly. I don't know if, that our listeners might be interested or not, but hey, it's a Indiana basketball team and they're gonna be amazing. Like that's
yeah,
gonna be I mean, you're getting I don't know, I don't think there is a person here that hasn't heard about a player like Caitlin Clark. But I
right.
mean, it's basically you're getting the LeBron James of, women's basketball.
Mhm.
So what's not to like?
Right. And so to kind of speak about Caitlin Clark, I have no judgment about female athletes. I wanted to coach women's basketball this past fall, and they had a better candidate, a guy that had just coached professionally in China. I think his name was Will Clark. Actually, he had just coached professionally in China and came over here and just didn't have enough people for a team. So they ended up having to fold, right? Um, but I wanted to coach women's basketball because girls tend to stay in shape and get in shape and exercise, and they're good team players. So basketball is kind of a natural fit when you have a good work ethic. You know that repetition's key, and he who shoots or she who shoots the most free throws, most three pointers, most leaners, most one footers, most half quarters, most logo threes makes them in the game.
Yeah.
And one of the things about Caitlin Clark, she reminds me a lot of Steph Curry, except I jokingly, um, and again, it's one of the things I'm a gamer, so I'm going to bring up video games, right? So I play NBA 2K, right? Um,
Yeah.
so I posted on Twitter during the Elite Eight game. Oh, Caitlin Clark plays 2K on rookie. Like I
Hmm.
know she plays that on easy mode. You know why? She pulls up on people like you got nobody's business. That person had their hand out and they were right in front of you, and she pulled straight up on you and hit that. And you're like, oh, she's doing that in the league too. Every player's getting their hand up and they're getting out there and she's shooting it over your hand. Like
Yeah.
she elevates on her shot. Most you got to make some generalizations in your life that you live with. Most women don't elevate, right? She elevates. When she shoots, she jumps. When she drives in the lane, she's in the air. You know what I mean? Like like you said, she's signed with LeBron James. In my eyes, she's like Steph Curry, but Steph Curry with less of a leash, right?
Yeah.
In my eyes, Steph hit some crazy shots early in his career, but it's bad. It's bad habitually, right? You can't be doing that over and over. You do it every now and then, it's great, right? But when you watch Caitlin Clark, let me give you a little play-by-play that tells you this is how good this girl is going to be. In 5 straight possessions, and I've never seen this out of another basketball player, so that's why we should start here. 5 straight possessions. Keep in mind, on the third or fourth possession, there was a foul called, and she hit it
Yeah.
anyway. Okay. But 5 possessions in a row, Caitlin Clark crossed half court, took less than 3 dribbles, and hit a fucking 3-pointer off the dribble from different spots on the floor using different moves. You don't even see NBA players doing this. She did it 5 possessions in a row. And the only reason you didn't see it on Sports Center and it wasn't plays 1 through 5 is because they called a foul on the fourth play on the person being screened, right? I think
Yeah.
they called it a defensive foul the way that they attacked the screener. She hit that shot too. I'd never seen that in my whole life. I played basketball my whole life. I'd never seen somebody that in control, not only of herself, the ball, and offense, and knowing where she is on the floor, knowing when to pull the trigger. When you're hot, you're hot. When you can't be stopped, you can't be
Yeah.
stopped. Those things are for real, and she has that sort of like um J.R. Smith, that
Yeah.
microwave
Type of,
factor,
yeah.
where like she really will just hit like 4 standstill threes in a row on you, and you're just like, damn, you just left her wide open. And you think about like in the women's game, as much as the men's game, if you're willing to move without the ball, you can get open, right?
Yeah.
Well, she has really good footwork and she's able to get herself free. And it's just like, man, she's gonna be a knockdown drag out every night. She's hitting 6+ threes, like gonna be a terror in the league. And it's coming with the confidence. Like she doesn't have to work on that. She has that. It's like I jokingly said, she plays 2K on rookie, bro. Because like she crosses half court, if she knows she can get the shot off, it's going in. Like that's the level of confidence she plays with. And there aren't people on earth that play like that.
Yeah.
Everyone else is conscious, right? Like everyone else is like, I have a limit. I have a limit to where I could pull up from. She don't got that, and she doesn't have a leash either. Meaning, like she could take a shot and miss it, and she doesn't get pulled, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a good chance she hits that, and she probably practices it, and that's what. And again, she practices it, which is why she hits it in the game, and is afforded the leash. But like I said, it's exciting for basketball, period, because people are creatures of habit and mockery, right? So people are watching Caitlin Clark, and you can't help but think as a basketball player, am I not confident enough? Like, do I not play with enough confidence? And I think that if she can inspire women, fantastic. But she's a kind of inspiring to me to where you're like, am I not confident enough? Like, should I be playing on rookie mode? Right? Like,
Yeah.
should I so that hey, you could take this all the way into the paint on this girl, right? Like she has that mentality, like you could take this to the rack and score, right? And get fouled and hit the free throw. Like she
Yeah.
has all of that. And you've got to have it in the NBA. But here's the thing: what's great about this story about Caitlin Clark is there's like 5 of her. If you really want to talk about it, Angel Reese is a 2020 potential in the
Yeah.
NBA. She's a big 4. There's also Paige Buckners and Haley Van Lilf. Have you watched this girl? She's like Kyrie
Yeah. The
Irving
blonde girl
from
from
LSU.
LSU, right? Yeah.
Yeah. She's like Kyrie with the handles. It actually like, hey, the WNBA is about to have a bunch of fresh faces that are all money makers. And what an exciting time for women's basketball to just thrive. I'm here for it. Especially, I kind of think LeBron might be on the way out. So I want to make sure
Yeah.
you rip that out there when podcast. LeBron is talking about the end times. He's saying that door's closing fast. I'm not saying it's this year or next year. He did say he wants to play with his son. His son is now declared for the NFL draft
Yeah.
and also keeping his transfer portal options open. Um, and while we're on the topic of basketball, why don't we talk about the Pacers since that's one of the teams we cover? The Pacers right now are a solid 6 seed in the East.
Yeah.
There
2 games
is
remaining.
potential for them, and I don't know the exactsies, but I know that Cleveland, who they play tomorrow, is a game ahead of them.
Yeah.
Cleveland is tonight on the front end of a back-to-back. They're supposed to win. If I remember correctly,
Yeah, it's against the
Cleveland,
Grizzlies.
they're like a 19-point favorite. Okay. They're supposed to win that game. The Pacers, in my eyes, they get to count tomorrow like a playoff game because it could have
Yeah.
playoff implications. It might not. And so I'm not going to put my foot in my mouth because I got to factor in. I'm pretty sure Cleveland's supposed to win tonight. So that means that they would be a game and a half up, I think. And then if the Pacers win, I think they're still a half game back.
Yeah, half game down.
So it's like I don't want to say too much, waste too much energy thinking about the what ifs when two things got to happen. Cleveland's got to lose tonight for tomorrow to actually mean something.
Yeah.
But what I would want if I was like coaching the Pacers is I would want tomorrow, I want to see playoff tempo, right? Knowing you're not playing a back to back. And I think they end the season with a like a losing team.
Yeah, against the Hawks. I'm pretty sure the last game's against the Hawks.
So I don't think Atlanta's in the playoffs. So they've
No,
got
they got the 10 spot locked up, I believe. They're going, I think it's already settled. Like
yeah.
they're going against Chicago in the
Okay.
first game.
Yeah, I just saw that. They're just playing ball. Okay, so yeah, the 10 seed as opposed to like somebody that's already actually in the playoffs doesn't have to play for a seed. Um so yeah, because Pacers look good recently. Gotta win. Um, they're won now what 11 more games than they did last year. Trending in the right direction, right? Lots of games played out of Halliburton, right? Uh, Obviously traded for Pascal Siakam, and that's worked out. And he's
Yeah.
playing at a high level. Uh, and everybody else is too in the absence of Ben Matherin. One big up, TJ McConnell, even getting shouted out by LeBron James.
Yeah,
Um,
he's playing
they
amazing.
playing at a high level with a super high level of confidence. And again, I'm joking, but TJ McConnell is someone who makes me think like, did I just not have enough confidence? Because he
Hmm.
plays with a lot of confidence and he's a little guy,
Yeah.
right? And like I said, when it's almost like teams say, we dare you to beat us with TJ McConnell. And TJ's like, I'm up for that. Like, I'll go 9 for 9. I have no problem showing out and giving you really efficient minutes. So obviously when you're getting really efficient guard play out of a backup, that's usually where teams struggle when their backup comes in and he's ass on defense and then isn't doing anything on offense. He's just a body. Uh, the Pacers have that on everybody. I mean, the Pacers are in such a good spot. I'm hearing rumors Paul George wants to play with Halliburton to
Yeah,
end
that'd be
his career.
sick.
So I don't know how you make it happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just, hey, it looked like Halliburton and Siakam were friends before they were teammates. I'm just throwing that out there. And there's a little clip of Paul George and Halliburton like nose to nose talking about it, and you're like, interesting. Like people want to be here. That's great. It's because we have a podcast where like intelligent adults have a non-clickbaity conversation. We're not saying dumb
Yeah,
things for clicks. Um, um, yeah. So obviously, Pacers are going to the playoffs. I think they can beat anyone. Um, it would be great. I would feel a lot better if they had Ben Matherin. But if you just look at plus minus, it's like the Pacers are actually better without him. They're tighter because they
yeah,
have less people that they can rely on. So everybody's playing with a heightened sense of awareness. That's not uncounted for here. That's one of the things that is the tie that binds is when you have a small click, right? And you're not just a rotunda where you're just rotating through people trying to find your people. I think the Pacers have their people.
yeah,
They're in the building, they're on the Mad Ants. You know what I mean? Like they've got the future of the franchise in the building, and they're young. And again, one of the conversations that you and I are going to have, I'm up for it as long as you are, as long as the Pacers are an organization and playing. Hey man, they've got guys on that team right now that I want on my team in like 5 years too. And so
yeah,
the Pacers are going to be in a spot where the Colts are, where you're starting to re-sign your own players. And that's a great caveat, right? We've talked ad nauseum about the Pacers. Hey, man, this podcast is called the Coltist. So let's finish this bad boy up talking about the Colts, right? One of the things that you and I were talking about before we realized, like, hey, man, we have a podcast to record
hmm,
is is how the Colts are not handling free agency like other teams in their division are. And I wanted, because you probably know way more than I do, can you kind of explain what's the difference between what the Colts are doing, which is re-signing their own players that
yeah.
they drafted, as opposed to being active in the free agent market, taking out somebody else's garbage, overpaying for people that are declining. Is that
Yeah, I mean, I believe the last episode we recorded, if I remember correctly, it was
uh
right when it seemed that Snead was about to sign with the Colts. He was about to get traded to the Colts. Then, of course, that did not happen. He went to the Titans instead. So, yeah, the Titans got Calvin Ridley and Snead. The Jacks, I'm not following them much. I really don't rate them as much right now. I don't think they are as good as some people point them out to be. Then you have the Texans, who, of course, they beat us in the divisional, basically in Week 18, winning in game. They beat us,
yeah.
and they got Stephon Diggs. They got Daniel Hunter. They've been loading up,
Who's their quarterback?
and the Colt, C.J. Stroud.
No, oh, Houston got Diggs.
Yeah, Houston got Diggs. Got Diggs.
Ah, that's a young receiver room.
So yeah,
So you're gonna
I mean,
taint it with Stephon Diggs.
yeah, I mean I don't
Is he
know.
the
He had
locker room
a
guy?
Yeah, I don't think that. I mean, I don't have the information to judge him on that. I know that last year he wasn't that productive with the Bills, but he's still, an uber talented guy. And when he's on, he's like a bona fide number one receiver. But yeah, it's a very different approach to what the Colts have been doing. Where if you look at the players the Colts acquired, it's Raycon Davis, who's a backup defensive tackle to the first
Massive
Wagner.
human being, by the way.
Yeah, big guy. I mean, not a bad
Six, like
signing by
six
any
eight, three
means.
twenty five or something like that.
Yeah, he's massive. He's gonna help take some pressure off the Forest Buckner on running downs. He's a good guy to have around. And then it's Joe Flacco to be the backup slash mentor, perhaps, to Anthony Richardson. That's all we got.
Yeah.
And we were reportedly, close on Snead.
Mhm.
And there has been some debate. Of course, there are some fans that want what the Texans and the Titans are doing. That is basically throw everything. Everything's up for sale. Let's go and get. Let's blow by the salary cap. Let's trade our future draft picks. Let's get all these guys. And then there's the other where it's like, hey, what Ballard is doing is fine. Just stand by him. for me, the truth, as always, in life, is not in either extreme. It lies somewhere in the middle, where I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying Ballard should, trade for whatever overpriced veteran is on the market and just,
Yeah.
hey, yeah, here, take our first round picks for the next decade and I'll give him a 100 million contract. But there were some signings made by contenders where I'm like, perhaps we could have made something here, something else, get a veteran cornerback, get a safety, perhaps. I know we re-signed Julian Blackman, but trying to get another safety. I think the Colts also need a linebacker because I don't think, like we were talking about this a lot in the
Mhm.
latter stages of the last year where we were saying like, hey, Sire Franklin's body can only take so much punishment. We were saying that, and then he got injured.
Right.
I mean, he missed a couple games, I believe. EJ Speed, I'm not as high as he on him as some other people. I don't think he's that great. I think that as a depth kind of guy, he's perfect, but I don't think he can be a starter because there were several instances last year where, if you remember, he made some really dumb plays. I mean, he basically costed us the game against the Rams. I remember that vividly because I don't know if you remember, it was early in the year that Matthew Stafford was on third down, third and long. He was going out of bounds. And Speed, for whatever reason, he hit him while he was, getting out of bounds. And it's like, don't hit the quarterback when he's going out of bounds. That's like an automatic 15-yard penalty.
Right.
And instead of getting the stop, they managed to score and we lost that game on overtime. So you can go back and say, hey, Speed, your mistake basically costed us the game.
Yeah.
And there were two or more like that later on in the year. So I'm like, hey, he's a great guy to have around. He's a good run stopper, but you also need a linebacker. So, anyways, to round out what I'm saying, I'm not saying, hey, Ballard should trade for whatever veteran comes in and sell the house and get those flashy day one moves where you're like, I mean, this might be an overpay. And I'm all for re-signing our own guys. All I'm saying is, hey, I saw some guys going in the market to some very reasonable prices. And it's not like they went to Miami or to San Francisco or like, hey, they're going to the big city. They were never going to come to Indiana because, I mean, they clearly have a preference for Miami, San Francisco, perhaps Los Angeles, New York City. They signed for, the Bears or the Minnesota Vikings. And you're like, we should be able to compete with them to get those guys, especially
Mhm.
because our team is much better. So yeah, that's my only issue where I'm saying I want to see some. I don't think the roster we have right now is good enough to make some noise. Even if Anthony Richardson is as good as they say, I still think we need to have a great draft, and we are banking like the other debates I'm talking about. The other debate we had in the Discord chat is the thing with Ballard is that he gambles a lot on his own players developing, which is great. I'm all for that, but he does that without a backup plan all the time. I mean, it happened a lot in previous years. We can go on and on about, like, for example, Matt Pryor left tackle and Danny Pinter at guard. That experiment almost got Matt Ryan killed. At wide receiver, it happened at cornerback last year. He gambles on his own players, and if that fails, we have no backup plan. And I mean, it's really hard finding a guy that can come in and play when you're in week 4 of the season. But right now, there are some decent options out there on the market if you want to look at him. And there are some veteran safeties, veteran cornerbacks. So you can get that.
I hear you. One of the things that will stick out to me when we're talking about free agency is and I hate when people ask loaded questions, so I'm gonna try to avoid asking loaded questions. But um, in every year for the last like 5 years, when they come out with coach rankings, Sean McVay is at the top of like every list for like best coach in the NFL. And I'll
Yeah.
never forget this guy is on Peyton and Eli one night chopping it up after, and it's after they won a Super Bowl. Okay. And obviously, because Peyton and them came on after they won. So that's dumb. Anyway, so they come on and they're asking him about, he has this eidetic memory and
Yeah.
he knows the play because they have a script that they use, and then they can go off of their script. And so, like, he would know the general what we're doing on that down and distance anyway because they have a script planned, and then they have some deviations off that are other plays out of the same formation that they would run instead.
Yeah.
So when he says he has an eidetic memory, he's just very planned. He knows what he's going to do ahead of time. They practice and rehearsed it a lot. They know what they're doing, right? He's a very good coach. But one of the things that I caught Sean McVay saying on an interception that his defense got is, oh man, we just had to have a guy in the neighborhood. We don't know what we're doing. We're guessing. And I sat there and thought, it's the best coach in the NFL. Telling you, yes, we got a turnover. We're one of the best teams in the NFL generating turnovers. We're guessing. We're guessing. So
Yeah.
why would you put money on that? Why would you invest in corners? You need legs. You need bodies. You need people to show up. That's what you need. And you need them young so you can train them. And you're guessing. The best of the best are guessing. If you've got a plan, you're thinking. Now you're playing a step slow. So, like I said, they're just guessing. And so that's one of the problems that I have with the way people treat free agency and the way they talk about it's Chris Ballard. It's like, no, it's in your face. They're saying it on TV. The coach is
Yeah.
getting put under the microscope, the film's on, and they're saying, tell us what your brain's saying. And he's like, idiots. Yes, we guessed. We were right. We're doing it all the time. That's the best in the NFL. And so, what do you think's happening in Indianapolis Colts land? You think word hasn't got here yet, and we ain't figured it out, bro? We're guessing. So every person in the secondary is expendable to me. It's the people that are in front of them that are not.
Yeah.
Your defensive tackles, your linebackers, your Zaire Franklins, your EJ Speeds, the guys you're saying can't be a starter. No, you can measure that, and you can make plays with that. What's going on back here? Unreliable. They get hurt too often.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing because once they get to 2 and 3 receivers to a side, once they get in a bunch, once they get in a stack, all bets are off. The combinations are limitless. And so now you're guessing. And I don't know about you, but if I'm handling 100 and what is it, over 200 million next year?
Yeah.
Over
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
million dollar roster, and I'm guessing in my secondary, and you want me to spend money on that? I'm sorry. We're on a different planet. I want to spend money on receivers and running backs and tight ends and linemen. Holy shit, linemen and a quarterback. And you're goddamn right. I went and got Joe Flacco after Anthony Richardson almost fucking died like 3 times.
Yeah.
Look how long Joe Flacco's been in the league. So hell yeah, I want that guy on my team too. Why? Because you can win with that. When Anthony Richardson goes down, I can win with it. I can win with Joe Flacco because he'll keep himself alive. And so that's the real thing. That's what the reality that Colts fans need to come to grips with. Yes, we were probably a player in a lot of these situations. And you know what Chris Ballard said? Fuck it. I'll spend a draft pick or 2 more on my secondary
Yeah.
and develop a young kid that's got the kind of pedigree that tends to stick around in the NFL. And you know what's funny? A lot of the guys that the Colts have drafted in the secondary since Chris Ballard's been here are still playing. They may not play for the Colts, but they're still in the league. So he's actually a lot better at his job than we're even fathoming because we tend to only think about what benefits the Colts when the reality is like, if you're still hearing that dude's name called 8 years ago when he was drafted and he's still playing in the league, hey, guess what? The GM did his job. So that, sorry to get passionate on the opposite end of that, but it's like I all day long from every angle, my colleagues that write, these idiots on social media, it's like, get a grip.
Yeah.
The best of the best are fucking guessing in the Super Bowl, and they're winning. So why would you bet exorbitant amounts of dollars on your secondary? knowing that you just need valuable legs that show up every day, can make a tackle.
Yeah.
Because they're not covering. They're not playing man. We're not getting in people's hip. They don't do that in the NFL anymore. They get a flag. They're not, the receivers don't block either. So I could argue from that angle too. The receiver's not blocking, he's running a route. And there are so many routes. Oh my God. It's not 10 route tree. There's not 10 on your route tree no more. There's 500 different combinations of routes. Everything has a stop now. Your post, stop. Your fade has a stop. Your dig has a stop. Like, you're guessing. Nobody's in the right spot. If the quarterback is patient and protected, he can find the open person every down, because they're going to put 4 and 5 people out into routes. And like I've said, once you ask a coordinator, once you put 2 and 3 receivers to a side, and if you could protect a release, which means that you have a bunch or a stack, if you could protect that release, that guy's open every time. There's nothing you can do about it because you can't hand check that. So I don't know about you, brother. I'm on Chris Ballard's side here. Like, I don't want to invest $50 million in one player when, hey, what's the best you got?
Yeah.
And we did it. For the record, we did that with Gilmore. We went and got him. What happened? He got beat on a slant.
Yeah.
Supposed to be one of the best cover corners in the league, and we went and paid for it. And how'd that work out? So
Yeah, it didn't.
It's crazy to me. It's almost crazy to me when people are like, man, we should have paid $9.5 million for that corner. Really? A year for a guy that's gonna give up multiple touchdowns and piss you off the entire season? Or would you rather have it be a rookie and he's ours and we get to make him, and he makes big plays? We want to keep that player. And when he just gets rolled over in practice, that's what you spend draft picks on him for. And a bigger problem that Chris Ballard has is he's under a number crunch, right? You only get 46 on game day, 50 something on a main roster. You got your little squad of players, but he told you up front, great teams are built foundationally through their trenches, right? I think the Raekwon Davis signing is sort of putting a bow on that, where, hey, you know what? We ought to be able to not have to worry about that O-line or D-line for a couple years now. And we ought to be able to go focus on these other avenues of our team that we need to sew up, right? Because now we think we got the guy at quarterback, and now we're in our window, right? So I think that's where the Colts are. I think they saw enough out of Anthony Richardson to say, you know what? Go out there and have a respectable season. Check. Did that last year. If they're in the could be the number 1 seed frame. Remember, year to year, the most the team tends to improve is 4 games. Hey, didn't the Colts just win 9 games? 13-4 sounds an awful lot like a 1 seed. Sounds an awful lot like you're hosting playoff games. So I think Chris Ballard's done a phenomenal job. And again, it don't get talked about often enough. And I think with this being like a Vontae Davis episode, that we ought to talk about guys like Andrew Luck retiring in the middle of a storied career, a once-in-a-generation quarterback, succeeding none other than Peyton Manning, and doing it well. Right? He retired young. Right? Yeah. So that has a huge lasting impact on your organization when someone that is reliable, performs at a high level, is an exemplary sort of like human being / teammate, right?
Yeah.
That is very difficult to replace when it retires under 30. So lost in all of this is that Chris Ballard was the GM when that happened. And it's super hard to build a team when you've got uncertainty at quarterback. And they've been trying to plug that hole since Andrew Luck left. And with the exception of the Phillip Rivers year, they have not done well. Last year they were treading water, but I think that their roster was in a spot because, again, continuity, availability, right? Seemed like a
Yeah.
lot of these guys that got re-signed played a lot of football, right? And I think the Colts are in an enviable position because continuity and availability is what wins games. So the reason the Colts buying in on their own people instead of shipping them out and getting new people, while other teams get other people's problems. In my opinion, I thought Stephon Diggs was on pins and needles the entire time he was in Buffalo, was holding his
Yeah.
tongue and biding his time. And last year, his
He
numbers
left it. Yeah.
said everything that you needed to say about the player. Clearly, he's unhappy. There is some, I think he was being fake about his relationship with Josh Allen, and they were putting on a show for the public just to make it, if they win, we're best friends. If we lose, we're enemies. Those are super competitive people are like that. I'm not even saying like they're wrong for that, but I can see through the facade that is
Yeah.
social media and say he didn't appear happy there at times for years. Houston brought that into their locker room with young, talented receivers. And I think that'll prove it to be a mistake. Time will
Yeah.
tell. As long as Diggs is getting the football, I imagine he's
He'll
happy.
be happy.
He's a great teammate. But I can
The minute,
imagine
yeah.
in a tight contest and he doesn't get the ball on a key down, you lose him. That. And then you and I are sitting here going, oh, we talked about that on that Vontae Davis episode, on that tirade you went on how your trash is not someone's treasure. And in the
Yeah.
NFL, it's like when you draft a guy, you are buying their labor at such a cheap cost. And you give them, and again, I've talked about, I think sometimes there's not enough leash, and sometimes they let a guy hang out a couple years too long, and you're kind of trapped. And I
Yeah.
like it when teams are a little more aggressive with moving people if this guy is a good player but not a good fit, right? And then you see him playing in somebody else's team, and you're like, huh, Pierre Desir, huh, that's weird. You know what I mean? Like, huh, he fit on somebody's defense, right? So that's what I've been thinking about when you go to think about the Colts with Anthony Richardson. More film has come out of him throwing
Yeah.
and looking
He
like
looks amazing.
it looked like he could really rip it. One of the things that I had said, I think before we started recording, is that, when I think of Anthony Richardson, do you know the vibe I'm getting off of him is Alien, like the
Yeah.
movie Alien, where you can't, you haven't really got a good look at it yet. You don't quite know.
Yeah. You don't know what his ceiling is.
You don't know that he also spits poison like 180 feet. Like you don't know that has that capability. Oh, I didn't see the barbed tail. I didn't. Oh, I didn't also know that was coming. But that's what the kind of athlete that a 10.0
Yeah.
in
You're
the
talking.
RAS is going to do. Because again, I want to make sure everybody understands football is a running sport. He didn't hurt his legs.
Yeah. He
So
hurt his
so
shoulder.
can you imagine you're a quarterback, you're Anthony Richardson, and you can't throw? Oh, honey, he's not going to be the same wheels you saw last year. He might be faster. That's what should be keeping people up at night right now. That's what I think that Houston and Tennessee and Jacksonville are having nightmares about is what are we going to do when Anthony Richardson gets loose? He's going to run all over us. Him and
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor are going to put up 1,000 easy all over this division. That's where we really are. So they're these other organizations are buying unhappy people, and it's like right. And the Colts bet big on their own, and they got a young quarterback, and they got a game defense. I'm not saying they're good.
Yeah.
I'm not stupid. I was not born yesterday. They got a
Hmm.
game defense though. And the game defense means that they can keep you in it in on both sides of the ball. Meaning the offense with Anthony Richardson, I'd argue with Joe Flacco, can score frequently enough that hey, hey, that other team's got to be getting over on us to keep up. And so now you're going into the second quarter. Colts are up 17-7 with the ball. This could be an all-day game. That's 24/7 for the before halftime. For those of you who know,
Yeah.
um, Colts could be up 24/7 if they score, and you're going to think about me because I told you in March or in April. I'm sorry, it's April. I told you in April before the draft, if I'm the Colts, I need a fifth offensive player. And again, this is one of the things that I was telling you before we got started. In my eyes, take Anthony Richardson out. So just take the quarterback out and say that that position is solved. How about that? And then think about outside of the quarterback, name 5 people you want to put the ball in their hand. I'll go Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman,
Michael
Alec
Pittman.
Pierce, Alec Pierce, Josh Downs. Who's the fifth guy? I don't know who that is yet. Is it Bowers? Right? Is it a guy that they draft a tight end? Is it Neighbors? Is it a receiver that they end up drafting in the first round? Is he already on the roster? Is it Jelani? Is it Granson? Is it right? Is it this other person? I don't know.
Yeah, you're
I
banking
don't
on
know.
to develop.
But I kind of think I don't know that. And again, I'm just saying I don't know as opposed to prognosticating and being dead wrong and wasting hours of my life. But I don't know that there is a cornerback in that range between pick like 11 and 19 where if the Colts were to pick a cornerback at 15, you wouldn't be too pissed because, oh, there was a corner that was in that area. I don't even know that that guy exists. But I think there's a higher probability with the depth at wide receiver in this class that there's a wide receiver in that
Yeah,
11 to 19 range that I think the Colts are
yeah,
looking at, gonna get a shot at, probably gonna end up taking, and it's a numbers game, guys. I'm coming to you loaded. They've said this is a really deep wide receiver class. So that kind of lends me to say, like, well, if I'm the Colts and I just resign all these people, hmm, I need a fifth guy that's a tight end or wide receiver. Is there a corner that's better than that? I'll take that. If not, I'm going wide receiver. And then I'm going to do that the next round and the next round. Like, I want the best. I don't know if you've all figured it out yet. I want the best athlete that has the traits that my
yeah,
team is looking for that I think might have some long-term value for us. So that guy has to be willing to play special teams and has shown a proclivity to make those plays and also has shown some range and is some versatility, right? And so be thinking
yeah,
about that as you head into the draft. Like, don't be thinking, oh, woe is us, we're screwed at corner, we're going to be terrible again. No, actually, you need some young legs that you can
yeah,
teach the ins and outs of the position, and they're young enough where they're not going to have small tissue injuries constantly, keeping them out of lineups because they're under 25. And I want as many of them people as I can on my team. Somebody's going to stick. Somebody's going to figure it out,
yeah,
right? Um, and so that's the bigger thing is that it's a mental game. And so be thinking about that, man. Like I know a lot of people have a different opinion, right? I like mine because mine's like positive, right? Like
yeah,
instead of saying, "Oh man, it sucks. The Colts never buy anything," and it's like, yeah, I wouldn't. Top of my profession is guessing. I'm not spending a bunch of money on that. Sorry. I'll spend money on touchdowns, right? I want receivers that are reliable and running backs that are reliable and an offensive line that's reliable, right? All those other things are secondary, right? So I'm excited because I feel like it's almost like I'm being validated in what I'm thinking, the way the Colts behave, the product you see in the field. Like, I get it.
yeah,
People want more. I want more too. I'm not on my laurels as a fan saying, "Oh yeah, we're doing plenty." No, I want to see the Colts have a big draft, make a move, get a Marvin Harrison Jr. What are we talking? Right? Do we have that kind of capital? So I think obviously it would turn the sports world on its head. I do think.
Yeah.
I do think. And there's always that possibility. And that's one of the things that is a great motivator for me. Is like, what if instead of what I'm saying, which is boring, Jared, it's boring that the best secondaries in the NFL are guessing, and you'd rather sign your own people. Yeah, it's boring, but it's winning. It's winning a lot of football. And those people all have played a bunch of football for the Colts in the last few years when there wasn't a lot of stability around them and done well for themselves, right? So I don't think you want someone else employing them. Those are people you want working for you, right? Because they show up, and for all intents and purposes, you're paying Zaire Franklin for what he's done, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion, Zaire Franklin showed you who Darius Leonard really is and saved you, I don't know, millions,
Yeah.
right? In my opinion, because Zaire Franklin, all of a sudden, he's there. He's there making the tackle, and where's there's, oh, he's lost a step, right? How many weeks did you need to see that? I think it was 5 before the Colts got him
Yeah.
out of there.
5, 6. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, those kinds of feelings, I've been having a lot of those since Chris Ballard's took over. I vibe with what Chris Ballard's doing. I'm not sucking his toes, it's not weird. I kind of see what he's doing. You know what I mean? I'm not all these other people that, oh man, the Indianapolis is a lame sports town. None of these franchises know what they're doing. They're not active enough in free agency. And it's just like, bro, Paul George was nose to nose with Halliburton. And I'm telling you, he was talking about what neighborhood you living in. Where you at in Indy? I'm coming home. Right?
Yeah.
So I think that good is on the way. A lot of people don't realize, a lot of people that are Colts fans, you all don't realize how nice Indianapolis is. Like, I get it, Indiana is like, ugh, but Indianapolis, it's a nice city. And any athlete that is any good had to come through here anyway, right?
Yeah.
You either played in the NCAA tournament or you got drafted in the NFL, or I'm sorry, went to the combine, right? And you were here anyway. And you're like, you know what? It's not bad. It's not a bad town, you know? And you can win. You can win in towns that are like not a nice little city like this. And people are realizing, players are realizing, like Paul George is realizing his no titles since he's left, right? Or do they get one?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he's won any since he's left. So,
No, not a
so,
single one.
so that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people think that you got to get out of Indy to win, and I just don't agree anymore. Like, Rick Carlisle is a good enough coach. Shane Steichen's a good enough coach. These are people that can get you to the promised land. I'm happy. This is awesome. This is way better than it's been in years past, right? I don't feel delusional.
Yeah.
Yeah, in years past, I'm like, I don't know why we're sitting here acting like we can win these games. Like, what are we talking about, bro? Like, they're terrible,
Yeah.
right? So, sorry for the little rant,
Hmm.
but I feel like the opposite perspective is getting way more shine, and I'm just off of it,
Yeah.
right? Where people are like, "Oh, we don't spend enough millions," and it's like, what? What if in the middle of the season, I'm just gonna throw a name out there, Joey Bosa is like, "Give me the out of here." Do you want to have the 20 mil to buy him out?
Yeah.
Or do you want to have to be one of them people that's like, nah, we bet on some shit. So here we are, right? And
Yeah.
again, that was just a random name, but it's like a thought in your head. Like, wouldn't you rather have guys that were really good, solid contributors for you that you expect that trend to continue, and then you have the flexibility to be able to do something should something happen where like a highly productive player becomes suddenly available. You'd like to
Yeah.
be able to make a move there. These are the sorts of spots I see the Colts being in the next year or two, is really being a player or two away. or getting a guy back off injury away from being like, hey, that's as good a 22 as the Colts have had. That's as good a 46 as we put out, you know? And again, I think that's what's the big problem with football and the NFL specifically. Because at the college level, these programs have like 100+ people. You get to the NFL, man, and that's a small group of people if you really think about it. It's actually really hard to man. It's easier to manage than it would be at the collegiate level now I think about it, because there's just less people. Even with your scout team. So like I said, I totally empathize when anyone's
Yeah,
like, God, we're not active enough in free agency. And I just happen to think we're doing awesome. We signed Julian Blackman. We re-signed him. So you in my eyes, like a receiver type in a corner early, and I'm sleeping like a baby. I got what I wanted. Christmas is over, right? And he's going to be a real traitsy guy with like a really high RAS score. And you're, what else did you want? That's exactly what we needed, right? And obviously, you hope you get that right. But again, I just want to keep pointing out, just because that player that we pick, that we put a bunch of hope in, don't pan out here. Look at how frequently they stick in the NFL. And they may not make it here, but like they're playing for somebody else. And hey, man, one of the 32 best at their job in the league, that means the GM did his job. I mean, right? He's getting
yeah,
paid millions. It ain't ours, right? Like, what do we
yeah.
really
But
care?
he's a player that's stuck. Yeah,
Yeah. So that's the way I kind of think about it, because I think all too often we get caught up in like, oh, we drafted this guy and he didn't become a Pro Bowler for us. And it's like, I think about what was I was going to bring up a guy and immediately forgot his name. He was like the Ashton Doolin, right?
yeah,
Ashton Doolin is a guy where you're like, he played special teams. He was like the number 4 receiver for years, right? Not a number 1, not a starter on our team, but in the league and valuable. Um, and if not on our roster, he's making someone else's roster in that time frame. So I think about like when people talk about like hit rate and stuff like that on drafting, and it's a crapshoot, man. You never know what's going to happen. Guy could just retire in the middle of the game, right?
yeah,
So hey, this has been what is this, season 2
yeah. Season
episode,
three,
season
I believe
season
it's season
3
3.
episode 2, the Vontae Davis special.
Vontae Davis. Yeah,
So yeah, enjoy the end of the NBA regular season, start of the playoffs. We'll get together in a couple weeks,
yeah.
chop it
Start
up,
talking about the draft
start
and
talking about
hopefully
the
the
draft
playoffs.
and the playoffs. Yeah, so our next episode should be right before the draft.
Yeah, we could do like a mock draft.
Sweet.
So yeah, stay tuned.
Sweet. I'll try to get a mock draft that I actually think is feasible together.
Yeah,
We could talk about it. That's fun. It's fun to
yeah,
do one to do
yeah. At
late
least
when you
one.
have all the info.
Yeah.
Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe out there.